Hello students, I'm Himani Sharma, your educator. I warmly welcome you all on our YouTube platform where we in today's video are going to discuss yet another important critics who are related to the field of Marxist literary theory. So who are we going to deal with? We are going to deal with Christopher Caudwell, Raymond Williams and Terry Eagleton. The two of them hold very prominent position, that is Williams and Eagleton. But Caudwell के questions भी we are seeing in these papers that are coming, and he holds a very prominent place to understand, to make us understand things from the Marxist point of view, as how reality can be distorted and whatever is there in the field that is there in the material conditions of the society, they somewhere are going to influence, somewhere or the other, they are going to influence the kind of art, the kind of literature that is being produced in that particular era, right? So let's just dive quickly onto that. First of all, we are going to talk about Caudwell here. He was the first significant English Marxist critic. So we have seen that they, the examiners, they tend to ask questions which are related to the origin of the critic. So here we see him being the first prominent English literary critic that is from the field of Marxism. Notable works are Illusion and Reality, that was published in 1937, and Studies in a Dying Culture, that came out in the year 1938. He explored the Marxist theories of art and their connection to the socio-economic conditions, as I was already telling you, that the way that he tries to portray and put things across is just like that, कि जो भी हमारी society में हो रहा है उस point of time पे, whatever works, whatever sculptures, whatever art, whatever science is evolving, that is totally dependent on the material production of that particular age, right? So they are interlinked is what he is trying to say. So in the work Illusion and Reality, he examined the relationship between art and the ideology, and we have talked about ideology as an important term already, right? Ideology is something which people think is prominent, that is there from the dominant class that is in power, right? Through the capitalistic mode of production, जो भी इंसान, a party, person, etc., whosoever will be in power, will somewhere or the other try to influence the ideology of the people, right? He explored how art reflects as well as distorts reality under the influence of social and economic conditions. Now, I would try to bring you, here, your notice here to the picture that I had already been talking about in other video as well. But look at the picture here. The picture, this is a painting which was painted by Salvador Dali, and it is by the name The Persistence of Memory. It somewhere came around in the year 1931, I think, right? So in this image, you can see that during those times, because modernism was at peak, we see how the writers of that age try to show the fragmented and the distorted reality of those times. So was the case with the painters as well. You see how the image here is consisting of different types of clocks that are there, different types of watch that is showing us the time. And what does it tell us? That people were anxious and stressed during those times. They were disillusioned. They did not know what's happening to the time, the era that they were living in, when world wars were happening, right? So through the art, Dali is trying to show us the same thing, but how the reality was also distorted, right? Moving forward to the next work, in line, Studies in a Dying Culture, came in the year 1938. He addressed the challenges posed by socio-economic conditions and analyzed the cultural ramifications, that is the layers that are there, of a society in decline from a Marxist perspective. He is, as I told you, showing the prominent imagery of the time that he was living in, and not just him, but each and every person. If you try to read a novel from a Marxist point of view, you'll come to know that that particular novel is showing us that उस time पे कैसे लोग राज कर रहे थे. If we read the post-colonial works, we will see how people after colonialism they have underwent several changes, but they still have the trauma that came with the colonialism wala part from the British people. If you read something which is related to, race theory, you see all these things happening. So whatever was there prominently shows in the works. Untimely death he had in Spanish Civil War in 37, laid the groundwork for Marxist literary critics in Britain because he was an English literary critic related to Marxism, pioneering contributions to the development of Marxist literary theory in the English-speaking world. Because initially we see that there were people who were from Hungary, there were people who were from France and all, but we also see the people from Britain taking interest in understanding the socio-political aspects of the thing through the capitalistic or Marxist lens, right? Then we have just look at the literary example here, Animal Farm. I have given this example time and again. So how does it reflect the reality? Orwell's depiction of the farm animals overthrowing their human oppressors mirror the socio-political dynamics of the revolutionary change. And if you remember, in Animal Farm, Orwell is trying to critique the Soviet Union through the allegorical form. So he cannot directly, shower some sort of attack onto them, but he's trying to do that through the usage of the work. So it is reflecting the society that is there, that how people were using the power in a negative stance, the abuse of power. How is it distorting reality? As we see animals here. So we cannot see animals ruling, but in the novel it's there. So it's distorting the reality to present the reality as well. As the pigs representing the ruling class become corrupted and adopt the human vices that we have, the initial ideals of equality are distorted. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So these are several quotes from the work itself, which is trying to tell that pehle equality thi, now that equality is also distorted. This distortion reflects Caudwell's idea that art can both mirror, dikha bhi sakti hai, and warp reality based on socio-economic influences. Dikha bhi sakti hai, chupa bhi sakti hai. It can reveal, it can show, it can reveal, it can conceal. Socio and economic conditions. Marxist lens would analyze how the shifts in power among the animals parallel the societal changes in a Marxist framework. क्योंकि animals आके humans को हटा रहे हैं from the power की position, right? So how the material conditions are also influencing the other things that are happening around, and वो दिखा भी रही हैं एक indirect manner में, right? Then we have Raymond Williams, born in 1921, passed away in 1988. He was a prominent Marxist literary critic as well. He, in his work Culture and Society, 1780 to 1950, tries to look at things through the Marxist perspective. He tries to look at the historical development of the word culture. With this, we will see that how in cultural studies there's a term that he tries to call, known as cultural materialism. That is to be dealt in cultural studies. Just giving you an idea here that how the culture, how it's also historically developed, right? Dynamic and evolving phenomena shaped by the historical processes. जो भी चीजें society में, जो history में होती थी पुराने times पे, they cannot be happening now. They do not happen because that's in the past, right? So how that history has shaped the entire world. If I try to talk to you about Chaucer during his age was one such person who belonged to an upper class family. That's why he got that kind of exposure. He was an ambassador as well. He was representing the king in different countries, in France, Italy, so on and so forth. So we see that thing because he held that sort of economic condition there. And whatever were the rulers during those times, अगर हम आगे चल के Elizabethan age पे भी आते हैं, we see during Elizabethan age, the British Empire is vastly expanding. So how the historical processes have somewhere or the other identified or changed the culture of that particular era. There is an interplay between social, economic and cultural forces as well, is what Williams tries to talk about. Then in the Long Revolution, it's an extensive analysis of cultural change. So Williams का major aim है to talk about culture, to bring forth culture at a level where he can talk about it openly in the stance that how the history also influences cultural materialism, right? The material conditions of the society also influence the culture. Role of intellectuals in societal transformations. Who are these intellectuals now? These are the intellectuals, these are the people who might bring a revolutionary change by bringing forth the right ways of thinking and सामने वाले को question करके कि जो आप कर रहे हो वो गलत है. This is the role of intellectuals that he puts across in societal transformations. Potential for a transformative long revolution, hence he gives the work the name the long revolution, right? और ये revolution कौन लाएंगे? Intellectuals लाएंगे to transform the society that somewhere or the other has been exposed to the vices, has been corrupted and all. So somewhere or the other, some person through art, through literature, people can rise up to the position where they can question the authority. And who will these people be? They will be the intellectuals, right? Then we have the country and the city, where he tries to draw the parallels between the two. Marxist scrutiny of a rural and urban dynamics, exploration of the socio-economic and cultural aspects of both these areas and how they are different or similar to one another in a way. Literature's role in shaping the perception of these environments. अगर हम देखते हैं Jane Austen के works में देखते हैं, अगर हम Blake के works में देखते हैं, we see that somewhere or the other there might be some sort of difference that is there. How city is shown, how the country is shown, how the country life in सब का दोनों में क्या differences they show, right? Then in the work Marxism and Literature, very, very prominent, examination of literature and ideology he does. Also, he gives us a nuanced analysis of literary forms and practices and how literature plays an active role in shaping and contesting the societal values, because literature is somewhere or the other showing the reality. और जब तक आप लोगों को reality नहीं दिखाओगे, they will not know what wrong is happening here and there. So if you are going to be at the intellectual role, you'll have to make people aware about what's happening in and around and how the capitalistic forces of Marxism is trying to alienate people from the product that they have created. This is also a concept of Marxism only, no? अगर किसी इंसान ने शैम्पू का फॉर्मूला बनाया, लेकिन later on the tag on the shampoo is of the company and not the person who has created it. So the person who has created it has been alienated from the product. That is also a concept that is related to Marxism. So through the literature, through the art and culture, one can bring significant awareness in the people who are reading, viewing your works, etc. Right? This is what he says. Now there are certain key terms that he has penned down. Number one is structures of feeling. Shared underlying emotions and values which are shaping some sort of a historical period. Iska example I have given in the upcoming slides. Just look at the example here. FOMO. What is FOMO? Fear of missing out in the age of social media. You know there's social media. And some people just create their accounts just for the sake of it. Just to show that I am not the person who's left out. Right? So how these feelings are somewhere or the other immersive. They become immersive in the nature of the people itself. I have brought forth certain other examples here. Like if you try to talk about, इसी में हम लोग बात करते हैं, अगर इसी particular structures of feeling में अगर हम बात करते हैं, take for example F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. The Roaring Twenties as they are presented there are talking about the excessive wealth that people are producing, but they are being disillusioned at the same time. So those are the feeling that people are feeling due to the historical stances that are there. That is structures of feeling. Sabki same structures here because of the historical stance that is there. Alright. Then we have selective tradition. Process of selectively choosing, preserving and transmitting cultural elements. What better an example than Shakespeare? Shakespeare is one such person, a writer, a dramatist, a poet, a sonneteer. He is one such person who has written multiple works. So his universality still is preserved. So selectively we know इन लोगों को सिलेक्टिव ट्रेडिशंस अगर हम अपने रिलीजन में भी प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, इफ वी ट्राई टू टॉक अबाउट इट इन द फील्ड ऑफ लिटरेचर, टेकिंग एग्जांपल ऑफ शेक्सपियर हियर, that how his themes are still universal. We are trying to preserve that kind of person who had been there and हम उसको selectively preserve करना चाहते हैं. Then we have dominant, residual and emergent. Analytical framework for cultural elements over time. Who will be the dominant? That are the prevalent cultural practices which are widely accepted. Dominant ये हो जाएंगे, ठीक है. Residual, who will be the residual? Residual will be the cultural residual from the past. Cultural residual मतलब किसी भी कल्चर का कुछ कुछ चीजें बच जाती हैं, कुछ किसी के ट्रेडिशंस बच गए, ठीक है, तो आप उसको प्रिजर्व करना चाहते हो तो वो रेजिडुअल हो जाएगा. इमर्जेंट इज द वन व्हिच नाउ इज इमर्जिंग. कोई चीज जो अब डोमिनेंट की प्लेस पे आना चाह रही है, दैट हाउ नाउ द कल्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस इन द प्रेजेंट दैट आर इमर्जिंग, दैट इज व्हाट इज इमर्जेंट. Right? Any ideology, any sort of group, first of all would be dominant. Then a new group will come, try to reach to that level. That group would be known as the emergent. And when we see that they both are fighting, there will be some group whose only some cultural values, some residual of the practices, the rituals, the traditions that they used to follow, वो residue बच जाएगा. तो ये तीन conditions, तीन groups के बारे में ही tries to talk about. This person Williams has tried to give us a new stance to view base and superstructure. And he says the dynamic interconnection between economic conditions and the cultural expressions can be seen. Just imagine Jane Austen's work, Pride and Prejudice, right? In Pride and Prejudice, how we see the material conditions of the society, the base is trying to talk about कि एक female की value क्यों है, कैसे होगी, इकोनॉमिक परसूट अगर करेगी, राइट. एंड वो इकोनॉमिक परसूट कैसे होगा, थ्रू द सुपरस्ट्रक्चर, दैट हाउ व्हिच फ्रॉम व्हिच क्लास डज शी बिलोंग, राइट. यू विल हैव टू बिहेव लाइक अ लेडी. दोज आर द कल्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस दैट यू डू. Those things happen in the superstructure. The cultural practices happen in the superstructure. But at the base level, what is happening is that you need to be pursuing a man for wealth, right? Marriage is an economic pursuit. That is the base, right? He tries to talk about it. So all these things, changes in gender role, emergence of online communication, literature as a reflection and contributor to cultural values. So these are major works. You can pause the video here and note them down. Please make sure Raymond Williams के works के subtitles you guys note down. Then we have these works as well with the subtitle Culture, Democracy, Socialism. And also note down that how some works are published posthumously. They are asked these questions. Then we have the last critic for the day, Terry Eagleton. He was born in 1943. He's alive, of course. Influential British theorist. He's also related to the field of Marxist literary theory and extensive engagement with Althusser and Pierre Mecheret, who we have already discussed in other videos. He says that literature plays an active role in shaping ideology. Eagleton is of the point of view that whatever literature is, अगर literature से कोई positive बात चली गई, it can influence people, make them aware, make them change their perspectives, it can change the ideology is what Eagleton believes in, right? Let me just give you an example here of news reporting. News reporting people at times we have seen, they have some sort of ideology, right? And through the ideology, whatever ideology that particular news channel, news reporting channel holds, they try to propagate it. The way they are framing the sentences, the tone they are using while talking about that topic. So they are playing with the ideology and they are not presenting the facts as they are. They are not being objective. They need to be objective, but they are not being objective. right? So how these news reporting things, they shape. He also says not just news reporting, literature bhi shape karta hai ideology ko. Text actively shape ideology, creating the impression of reality. And at some point of time, if the text you are reading, it holds some sort of ideology and you agree to that ideology, it will change your perspective on how you look things. It will change your reality. Concept of ideology includes political ideologies and systems of representations, and he examines ideologies both external to and within a text. Take for example Chinua Achebe's work, Things Fall Apart. Internally, this text talks about colonialism, right? But externally, that colonialism was far spread. Agar external bhi text se jaate hain, the same impact it had on people where the British colonies were established. So the European imperialism, from the internal colonialism, it reaches to the next ground level of outside the text of European colonialism. How? It was affecting the indigenous groups who were there, their cultural practices, right? Eagleton demonstrates flexibility and openness in refining his positions, and there's a very well-known work, Literary Theory 1983, where he humorously explores modern ideas and the isms that are there: futurism, modernism, Marxism, right? All the isms which are the movements that have been there. Ideology, he says, encompasses all systems and theories of representation. Whatever you see is being represented, that also comprises of ideology. It's not just कि कोई politically आपको आके guide कर रहा है, वही ideology है. It can be shaped through various modes, art, literature, science, etc. It goes beyond political ideologies to include diverse forms shaping understanding of experience, where you, if somebody tries to manipulate you into believing in some sort of ideology, you shape your reality based on that, right? आपको लगता है वही चीज सच है. These are the major works. Also, Eagleton is a very, very prominent writer, right? You can take the note from here. ये पूछा गया है बहुत बारी, right? And they ask you these things and match the following questions as well, right? So you can pause and note down. All right. With this, I'll take your leave. I hope you've understood things from different perspectives of different theorists. We are left with 2 critics as well, and then we will be proceeding with the previous year questions. If you have any doubts, you can comment down below and I will reply for sure. Thank you so much for staying here. Have a good day. Bye-bye.